Welcome back to another dark confession from the frozen province of Skyrim. Today we're climbing the 7,000 steps to High Hrothgar, where the legendary Greybeards maintain their eternal silence. But this isn't a story about wisdom or enlightenment. This is a story about what it really costs to master the Thu'um, about what happens when your gift becomes your curse, when your voice becomes so powerful that speaking a single word could kill everyone you love. I haven't spoken to another human being in 17 years. Not because I've taken a vow, but because a single whispered word could crack their skull like an eggshell. The world thinks the Greybeards are blessed, chosen by the goddess Kine herself. But we're not blessed. We're quarantined. And I'm about to tell you why. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of dark storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if it truly resonates with you. I haven't spoken to another human being in 17 years. Not because I've taken a vow, not because I'm meditating on some grand spiritual truth, but because a single whispered word could crack their skull like an eggshell. The last time I laughed, I was 14 years old, and I didn't know yet that laughter would become a death sentence I'd carry in my throat for the rest of my life. They call us the Greybeards, philosophers, masters of the voice, wise men living in peaceful contemplation at the summit of the world. The pilgrims who climb the 7,000 steps to reach High Hrothgar see us as blessed, chosen by Kine herself to wield the Thu'um. They don't understand that we're not blessed, we're quarantined. Every breath we take is a calculated risk. Every thought must be controlled before it becomes sound. We don't live in silence by choice. We live in silence because speaking is murder. My name doesn't matter anymore. I gave it up when I came to this mountain as a boy, believing I was gifted. My father was so proud when I accidentally shouted our plow horse backward 20 feet during an argument. He called it destiny. My mother wept and packed my things. They both thought they were sending me to greatness. They were sending me to prison, a prison I built myself, word by word, year by year, until the bars became so thick I forgot what freedom tasted like. Master Arngir is the only one of us who can safely speak full sentences. Not because he's wiser than the rest of us, not because he's more enlightened, but because he's been practicing control for so many decades that his throat has learned to strangle every syllable before it escapes with full force. He's over 90 years old now. I'm 31. I have 6 more decades ahead of me, minimum, before I might, maybe, possibly whisper a greeting without killing someone. That's if I'm lucky. That's if I survive the loneliness that long. My brothers, Bori, Einarth, Wolfgar, they communicate through gestures now, through written words on slate and parchment, through the subtle language of posture and breath that becomes your native tongue when your actual tongue becomes a weapon. When the Dragonborn comes to us, when we test them and teach them, we whisper their name in the dragon language, Dovahkiin, just that one word, and the entire monastery shakes. The mountain trembles. Outside, people in Ivarstead evacuate because they fear avalanches. They think it's ceremony. They think we're being dramatic. They don't understand that we're screaming with relief that we can finally speak without killing everything we love. What do you think really happened here? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because most people have no idea what price we pay for power. The mountain shakes when we acknowledge the Dragonborn, and people think it's dramatic ceremony, but they don't understand we're screaming with relief that we can finally speak without killing everything we love. It's the only time we're allowed to use our voices at full volume, the only time the Thu'um can escape our throats without consequences. Because the Dragonborn can absorb it, they can take our words into their soul without shattering. For those few moments, we're not dangerous. For those few moments, we remember what it feels like to speak. Learning the words of power isn't like learning a language. It's not translation. When we speak in the dragon tongue, we're not saying words. We're imposing our will directly onto the fabric of Mundus itself. The word row doesn't mean balance. The word row creates balance by rewriting reality in the moment it's spoken. It took me 6 months of meditation before I could speak row without destroying the ethereal targets we create for practice. 6 months of sitting in absolute silence, feeling the word forming in my chest, understanding its meaning so completely that my body and spirit became the word itself. And that's just one syllable, just one piece of one shout. The Dragonborn learns in minutes what takes us decades. They absorb knowledge from slain dragons like breathing. They walk into High Hrothgar barely knowing how to shout, and within hours they're using unrelenting force like they've studied it their whole lives. It's miraculous. It's insulting. It's everything we've sacrificed our voices for, handed to someone who never had to earn silence first. But that's why they're Dragonborn. That's why we need them. That's why, even though it burns to watch them master in moments what cost us years, we teach them anyway. Because the alternative is Alduin returning to eat the world, and our silence means nothing if there's no world left to be silent in. Paarthurnax taught Jurgen Windcaller the way of the voice, not the other way around, though most people get that backward. An ancient dragon, one of Alduin's own lieutenants during the Dragon War, defected to the side of mortals and decided that the Thu'um should be worship, not weapon. He taught Jurgen that philosophy after Jurgen survived the disaster at Red Mountain. After Jurgen spent 7 years meditating on why his voice had failed him, why strong voices had lost to Dwemer machinery and Chimer magic. Jurgen realized the gods had punished the Nords for their arrogant misuse of the Thu'um, for treating a gift from Kine like a tool for conquest. So Jurgen created the way of the voice and started teaching it. 17 masters of the voice challenged him. 17 tongues who believed the old way was better, who believed the Thu'um should still be used for war. They attacked Jurgen for 3 days straight. 3 days of constant shouting, 3 days of unrelenting force and fire breath, and every word of power they'd mastered. And Jurgen just stood there. He absorbed their shouts, swallowed them whole, let the words break against him like waves against the throat of the world itself. For 3 days he didn't fight back. For 3 days he just endured. And when his attackers finally collapsed from exhaustion, when their throats were raw and their spirits broken, they became his first disciples. They climbed this mountain with him and built High Hrothgar. They became the first Greybeards. That's the foundation of everything we do here. The understanding that the strongest voice is the one that stays silent until there's no other choice. True need is our only justification for using the voice in battle. Not personal survival, not protecting our homes, not even defending Skyrim in war. True need means the end of everything. It means Alduin the World Eater has returned to end time itself. That's the only circumstance that justifies breaking our silence with violence. People misunderstand the way of the voice. They think we're pacifists. They think we've taken some kind of holy vow never to fight, but that's not it at all. The way of the voice says violence is the least of the Thu'um's uses. Not that it's forbidden, just that everything else we could do with the voice is more important. Worship is more important. Meditation is more important. Understanding the fundamental nature of reality itself is more important. Using the Thu'um to fight is like using a cathedral as a battering ram. You can do it, but you're missing the point. I practice by shouting at the sky. Every morning, before the sun rises, I climb to the courtyard and direct my Thu'um at the storm clouds. Roda, Fuz Roda, Lakva Kur. Clear skies is my favorite. I watch the clouds part, watch the gaps open in the gray blanket that usually covers this summit, and for just a moment, I feel like I'm conversing with Kine herself, like my voice is reaching the goddess who gave us this gift in the first place. It's the only conversation I'm allowed to have, the only words I can speak without calculating the distance to the nearest living thing. I remember the taste of conversation, the joy of laughing with friends, The simple pleasure of saying good morning without spending 10 minutes beforehand, making sure no one's close enough to be hurt by it. Now, I communicate by nodding gravely when the Dragonborn masters another word, proud and envious in equal measure. Proud because they're learning. Envious because they'll never understand what it cost us to learn the same thing. Sometimes I dream I'm shouting, and I wake in terror, checking that the monastery still stands, that my brothers still breathe. The worst nightmares are the ones where I'm having a normal conversation with my parents, where I'm back home, telling them about my day, laughing at my father's jokes, and then I wake up and remember that if I ever went home, if I ever tried to speak to them again, I'd kill them both before finishing a sentence. They might still be alive down in the village. I don't know. I'll never know, because going back would be murder. The loneliness is constant. Not the solitude of a hermit who could speak if they chose, not the quiet of someone who's taken a vow they could break. This is the quarantine of a plague carrier who dare not touch. The isolation of someone whose very existence is dangerous to everyone around them. You can sit in a room with 50 people and still be completely, utterly alone when the wrong word could end them all. I watched Ulfric Stormcloak leave. He was younger than me when he arrived, maybe 12 or 13, bright-eyed, eager. He wanted to be a Greybeard so badly, he practically ran up the 7,000 steps. Master Arngir took him under his wing, started teaching him the basics, breath control, meditation, the fundamental understanding that the voice isn't just sound, it's reality itself shaped by will. Ulfric was talented, maybe too talented. He learned fuss in 3 months. Most students take a year just to grasp the concept. But then the Great War came. News reached us even up here, in our mountain sanctuary. The Aldmeri Dominion invaded. The Empire was bleeding, and Ulfric couldn't reconcile the way of the voice with what his heart was telling him. He couldn't sit in silence while his homeland burned. He came to me one night, writing on slate because even then, he understood the danger of speaking. "How can we do nothing?" he wrote. "How can we sit here when Skyrim needs us?" I wrote back, "The voice is not for war." He stared at me for a long time. Then he wrote, "Then what good is it?" He left the next morning, walked down the 7,000 steps, and joined the Legion. Later, he'd use his voice to kill High King Torrig. He'd start a civil war that would tear Skyrim apart. And the Greybeards would say nothing, because that's what we do. We say nothing. We watch the world burn, and we stay silent, because speaking would only make the fire worse. But here's what people don't understand about Ulfric. Here's what bothers me more than anything else. He left because he couldn't handle the isolation, because he still believed his voice should matter in the world beyond this mountain, and maybe he was right. Maybe the way of the voice is beautiful in theory and useless in practice. Maybe Jürgen Windcaller created a philosophy so pure that it can only exist in a place where nothing else exists. Maybe we're not masters of anything except our own irrelevance. Every day I wake wondering if today will be the day I slip. The day I laugh at a joke I can't share. The day I shout in pain when I stub my toe and accidentally bring down the ceiling. The day I forget, just for one moment, that my voice is a weapon loaded and cocked every second of every day. We lost a student once. I was 23, he was 16. His name was Torsten. He'd been with us for 2 years, making good progress. Learning to breathe, learning to think before speaking, learning to live with the weight. But isolation does things to the mind, especially to young minds that haven't fully formed yet. One morning we found him in the courtyard, screaming at the sky. Not words of power, just screaming. Human screaming. Raw, wordless pain made sound. The avalanche took 3 hours to stop. We had to use clear skies over and over to prevent the snow from burying Ivarstead completely. People died anyway. 4 villagers, crushed in their homes. And Torsten hanged himself in his cell that night before we could stop him. Before we could tell him it wasn't his fault. before we could explain that every single one of us has almost broken the same way. Master Arngeir doesn't talk about Torsten. None of us do. But I think about him every single day. I think about how close I've come to doing the exact same thing. How many nights I've sat in my cell with my hands pressed over my mouth, feeling words building in my throat like vomit, knowing that if I let them out, if I just screamed once, everything would end. The monastery, my brothers, the pilgrims on the steps below, all of it gone because I couldn't contain myself for one more second. If you've ever wondered what choice you would make in a situation like this, tell me in the comments. Would you choose power if it meant never speaking again? The world thinks we're wise and mysterious, living peacefully in our mountain sanctuary. They make pilgrimages to see us. They climb the 7,000 steps with offerings, hoping for blessings or prophecies or wisdom. They read the emblems carved into the stones. The voice is worship. Follow the inner path. Speak only in true need. They think those are beautiful philosophies, poetic truths about the nature of power and restraint. They're not philosophies. They're survival instructions. They're warning labels on containers of poison. Speak only in true need doesn't mean choose your words wisely. It means if you speak at all, people die, so don't do it unless the entire world is ending. And even then, even when Alduin himself returns to devour the Kalpa and reset time itself, even when that happens, we barely help. We send the Dragonborn to Paarthurnax. We teach them a few words. We reveal the locations of some word walls scattered across Skyrim, but we don't fight. We don't descend from this mountain and use our voices to blast Alduin from the sky, because we can't. Because if we unleashed our full power, we'd destroy as much as we'd save. That's the secret nobody tells you about mastering the Thu'um. The better you get, the more dangerous you become. Not just to your enemies, to everything. Paarthurnax can speak because he's a dragon. His nature is the voice itself. Master Arngeir can speak because he's 90 years old and has spent 70 of those years learning to whisper. The rest of us, we're walking catastrophes in training. We're decades away from being safe. Centuries? Maybe. And there's no guarantee we'll ever get there. I've learned to communicate through gestures and writing, but it's not the same. It's not even close. You know what I miss most? Humming. Just humming a tune while I work. I used to do that constantly as a child. My mother would laugh and tell me I hummed in my sleep. Now I can't even do that. Can't whistle. Can't clear my throat without checking first that no one's nearby. Every sound that comes from my mouth has to be planned, measured, controlled. The other Greybeards, Bori, Einarth, Wulfgar, their whispers could end a life. Their casual words could level a building. Their shouts could split mountains, and we all know it. We've all tested our limits in controlled conditions, shouting at the sky, measuring how far the force travels, how much damage we could do if we weren't careful. Bori once sneezed during meditation and cracked the stone floor beneath him. It wasn't even a word of power, just a sneeze, just a completely normal human function, and it shattered stone. After that, we developed techniques for sneezing, actual techniques. You press your tongue against the roof of your mouth in a specific way. You exhale through your nose instead of your mouth. You angle your head downward so that if any force does escape, it goes into the ground instead of outward. We have techniques for coughing, for yawning, for every involuntary sound a human body makes. Because our bodies are normal, human, mortal, but our voices are something else entirely. When we meditate, we hear the voice of the wind, the breath of the sky. Kind speaking in the language that existed before words, before mortality, before time itself. That's what the Thu'um really is. It's not magic. It's not some trick or skill you learn. It's the language of creation itself, the sounds that shaped Mundus from nothing. When Kind gave this gift to mortals at the throat of the world, when the sky breathed onto the land and created men, She gave us the ability to speak as reality speaks, to command existence the way the gods command it, and we're not supposed to have that power. We're mortals. We're brief, fragile things that live and die in the span of a single divine breath. We're not meant to reshape reality with words. That's why it takes decades to master even a single word. That's why most people can never learn it at all, no matter how hard they try. That's why the Greybeards exist. Not to wield the voice, but to contain it, to study it, to understand it so completely that we know exactly when and how to never, ever use it. Asterisk. If this story has kept you listening this far, and you want more of these dark confessions from Skyrim, hit that subscribe button. It tells me someone out there is still paying attention to warnings like these. Asterisk. I understand now why Paarthurnax chose exile at the summit. Why he sits alone above us, even higher than High Hrothgar, in constant meditation on the way of the voice. It's not because he's our leader. It's not because he's teaching us. It's because he's the only one who truly understands what it means to be a weapon that can never be sheathed. He was Alduin's lieutenant during the Dragon War. He enslaved humanity. He burned civilizations with a word. And then he turned against his own nature, against every instinct screaming in his dragon blood, and chose a different path. What is better, to be born good, or to overcome your evil nature through great effort? That's what he asks the Dragonborn. That's the question he meditates on every single day, and I finally understand why. Because every morning I wake up and choose not to speak. Every morning I overcome the human need for connection, for conversation, for the simple comfort of hearing my own voice say something that matters. That's my great effort. That's my battle against my nature. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Here's the secret that keeps me awake at night. The voice isn't just dangerous because of what it can do to others. It's dangerous because of what it does to you. Every word of power you master changes you, reshapes you. You don't just learn to speak in the dragon tongue. You start to think in it. Your thoughts become words. Your emotions become shouts waiting to happen. I don't think in Cyrodiilic anymore. I think in dragon tongue. When I see snow falling, my mind doesn't say snow. It says Moroke, which means both glorious and cold death. When I feel anger, my thoughts form the word Zul, which means voice and scream and power unleashed. My entire internal monologue has been transformed into a language that could kill if I ever spoke it aloud. I've been speaking to myself in my head for 17 years, and every single internal conversation is conducted in a tongue that would shatter bones if it became external. The Dragonborn doesn't have this problem. They absorb dragon souls, yes, they learn words instantly, but they're still human where it matters. They still think like mortals. They can turn the voice on and off like a tool. For them, it's power they possess. For us, it's what we've become. I tried to explain this to a new student once, 5 years ago. A girl from Markarth, maybe 15 years old. She had natural talent, could already produce a weak fuss without training. I wrote to her on Slate, "The voice doesn't make you powerful. It makes you dangerous. There's a difference." She wrote back, "I don't understand." I wrote, "Powerful means you can protect people. Dangerous means you can't be near them." She stayed for 3 months. Then she left in the middle of the night, didn't even say goodbye, just gone. Found out later, she joined the companions in Whiterun, became a werewolf, ironically enough, chose a different kind of curse, one that only came out during the full moon instead of every time she opened her mouth. I don't blame her. At least as a werewolf, she gets to be human most of the time. The question I keep asking myself is whether this is worth it, whether preserving the way of the voice matters when the way of the voice means we can never actually use it for anything meaningful. Alduin returned. Dragons are burning villages across Skyrim. The civil war is tearing the Panis province apart. And what do? We sit in our monastery. We teach the Dragonborn a few shouts. We point them towards some word walls. and we pat ourselves on the back for maintaining our precious philosophy. Ulfric was right to leave. I understand that now. The way of the voice is a dead end. It's a philosophy created by a man who was traumatized by defeat and spent 7 years convincing himself that his trauma was enlightenment. Jurgen Windcaller didn't discover a higher truth at Red Mountain. He broke, and then he built an entire religious order around his brokenness and called it wisdom. But I can't leave. That's the cruelest part. Even if I wanted to walk away like Ulfric did, even if I decided the way of the voice was worthless, I'm too dangerous now. I've mastered too much. My voice is too strong. At 14, I could have left and lived a relatively normal life, just being careful not to shout. Now I'm a loaded weapon with a hair trigger. I could sneeze wrong and collapse a building. I could laugh in my sleep and kill whoever's in the next room. So I stay, not out of wisdom, not out of dedication to some higher purpose. I stay because I'm trapped, because the same power that was supposed to make me special instead made me a prisoner. High Hrothgar isn't a monastery. It's where Skyrim keeps the people too dangerous to live anywhere else. 3 days ago, the Dragonborn returned from slaying Alduin. They came to tell us it was over. The World Eater was defeated. Time would continue. The Kalpa was saved. Master Arngir spoke to them, congratulated them, blessed them in the name of Kine and Shor. The Dragonborn smiled and thanked us for our help and guidance. Then they left, walked down the 7,000 steps back to their normal life, back to taverns and friends and lovers and all the things that make existence worth experiencing. And we went back to silence. I stood in the courtyard after they left and looked out over Skyrim. I could see Whiterun in the distance, Windhelm beyond that, villages and farms and roads connecting people to people. The whole province spread out below like a tapestry of life and noise and conversation. And I realized something that made my chest hurt. The Dragonborn saved the world, but they'll never know what that feels like. To save something while being excluded from it, to preserve a way of life you'll never be allowed to participate in. They get to be heroes. We get to be cautionary tales, living warnings about what happens when power becomes more important than humanity. I'm 31 years old. If I'm lucky, I have 60 more years ahead of me. 60 more years of silence. 60 more years of wondering if today's the day I slip, the day I forget, the day I accidentally murder someone because I had a bad dream, or stubbed my toe, or just got so overwhelmed by loneliness that I screamed without thinking. 60 more years of being the thing parents warn their children about when they show signs of the voice. You don't want to end up like them. You don't want to be a Greybeard. It's not worth it. They're right. It's not worth it. But someone has to do it. Someone has to preserve the knowledge. Someone has to understand the voice well enough to teach it to the next Dragonborn when they inevitably appear, because history runs in cycles, and Alduin will return again someday. Someone has to maintain this prison we've built for ourselves and call it a monastery. So I'll stay. I'll meditate. I'll shout at the sky and call it worship. I'll teach the next gifted child who climbs these steps how to strangle their own voice before it strangles them. I'll watch more students leave or break or die because they couldn't handle what we're asking them to become. And I'll pretend it's all part of some grand cosmic purpose. Because the alternative is admitting that I've wasted 17 years of my life, that I'll waste 60 more, that the way of the voice isn't enlightenment at all. It's just a very elaborate way of justifying why the most powerful people in Skyrim choose to do nothing. The mountain shakes when we speak the Dragonborn's name, but nobody hears us screaming.